Okay. Hey guys, this is my second time filming this, not the whole podcast, but like the first half, because like I just kept speaking and getting so unbelievably frustrated that I was like, you know what, D, like I did my updates and I was like, I've spoken about two of these bills already so much and I still like have so much to say, but I was like, you know what, D, get your shit together. Like, I look like I'm crying. I think I'm just tired. Like, why am I filming at 11:30 at night? I don't even know. But anyway, I didn't even do a proper intro. Oh my god, I just jumped straight into it. Welcome back to Polly Tea with D. I hope everybody had a great. Well, it's been a long time, really, since I've spoken to all of you guys. I guess I had my episode like 2 weeks ago, but that wasn't really me like doing what I do. It's just a bit of an interview. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview actually and learned stuff. But yeah, I didn't have an episode last week because my sister called and was like, "Would you want to go Portugal?" And me and my mom were like, "Of course." So yeah, we went to Portugal for a couple days last minute. So and I'd actually even prepped the episode and everything, but we were gone, so it was fine. I just said I'll do it next week. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Prioritizing my mental health and my stability and wellness and all the rest over this. Sorry. But yeah, I had a ball. Just me, my mom, my sister, girl family, girl dinner. But yeah, girl family, no boys allowed at all. I first was like, oh my god, there's gonna be so much to talk about, but honestly, not even. Even when I was doing like a recap for last week, was gonna be two episodes because I'd obviously missed 1 week with the interview. But the way politics works here is that like something comes out and it just doesn't disappear. It's like spoken about for weeks and weeks and weeks. So honestly, there's not a lot. It's just a few stories that have lasted a while that I'm going to be talking about. So, yeah, let's get into it. There are some heavy topics in this which I will give like what are they? Trigger warnings beforehand before speaking about them. Let's get into it. Let's start with the update. This is the one that like I have to redo now because I was speaking about it and I was just getting so frustrated, but I was like, you know what, I've spoken about both of these bills before in detail. So it's like I just really shouldn't be doing it again. Just to save space and time, but you guys know how I feel about both of these. First one, Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill. That has passed through all the stages, just passed through the final stage in the Shannon. So it has to be sent to Catherine Connolly for her to sign it into the law. One of the things the president can do is like refer to the Supreme Court. Will she do that? I don't think so because it's not like the bill is doing anything illegal. It's just a terrible fucking bill that will hurt renters. And like we have the stats to prove that. The government knows that this bill is going to increase rents. And interesting, Irish Iris Wright, shout out to Iris because my cousin's name is Iris, but Iris Wright, spelled differently, is Ireland's largest residential landlord, and one they just bought 77 properties in Kildare for like 33 million, and which with the government of course are saying win 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 win, but it's like baby, their average rent is 1,852 euro, and they've already boasted about how these positive changes that they this bill is what they call positive changes will lead to a 25% potential income like rise for them, a rise of 25%. That's good for the landlords, pretty shit for everybody else. Like Mary Lou was in the doll talking about this, and I mean loads of people were talking about this in the doll because everybody on the opposition hates this bill. And she said that a 25% increase means a hike of 5,556 euro annually for tenants. 5.5k. That's crazy. Where the hell are people finding this money? Also, new homeless figures just dropped 17,000, higher than it's ever been. Like, every time the numbers come out, they're not getting lower. We're hitting like higher numbers every single time. Every single time. Now we're at 17,000 homeless people. And you know what's interesting? They don't count the invisible like homeless, like the people that are, staying with family members or, staying kind of like in sheds and like family sheds, because it's like technically you have a house, but like that's not your home. Like you don't have a home, but like you technically have an address to put down. They're counting the people that are in emergency accommodation and stuff. They're not counting the people who are sleeping on the streets. So it's like we're saying 17,000, but it's much, much higher than that. And the fact that we're now getting information saying that rents are going to increase, I just don't know what they think the outcome is going to be. I mean, I know what they've said is that, like, it's to increase, like, property developers coming here buying properties or building, and then that means that there's more options, supply and demand, whatever, so then rent will go down. But it's like, when? Like, when will that happen, and why won't they invest in more social housing? I don't know. Could be because a lot of them themselves are landlords, and it's like they've just actually put more money into their own pocket because they're greedy. Um, yeah, that could be it. But anyway, we've spoken about this bill so much. Let me leave it there. The next bill is the International Protection Bill. It is flying through the stages, and the opposition are saying that the government are guillotining it because that's kind of like when they fast track it basically, so that there's minimal like a debate. Like, for example, the opposition put forward 300 amendments to be debated, and only 50 of those were debated before the vote happened, passing it through to the next stage, passing the bill to the Shannon. So, like, is that fair? 50 amendments debated when there was 300 submitted? No, it's not fair. It doesn't really give democracy at all. Um, but they want to fast track this one because they want to align with the EU Migration Pact. And you know what's weird is Jim O'Callaghan was giving out about Sinn Féin speaking about the bill in the Dáil, because they were like, is it necessary? He said, is it necessary that you had 11 TDs speaking about the same bill? And it's like, well, those 11 TDs, though they're part of the same party, represent 11 different constituencies. So that's kind of their job, to represent the people that voted for them and who care about this bill. Like, I think he is kind of like insinuating that they're doing it for clicks and views, because that's what, I don't know why they don't act like everybody does this, themselves included, that the shit that they say in there is to garner, for some people, clicks and views, but also this is their job. Like, you put forward a bill, it's their job to ask questions about it. Like, do you not want that? It's giving, like, the whole point of this is to have checks and balances. Like, what is confusing to you about this? Um, but yeah, it's a terrible bill. You guys already know exactly how I feel about it because we've spoken about it, but there's just been like law societies and stuff coming out and being like, the lack of scrutiny is very worrying, because the government are not listening to criticisms at all, and it's going to come back to bite them in the ass when they have a shit ton of lawsuits for the incredible harmful things that they're doing. So yeah, that's where we are with that bill. It's going to the Shannon, and then yeah. So now let's talk about some bills and motions that have been put forward. I'm going to start with the motion because I thought this was a great example, to a great chance to speak about what motions actually are. So motions aren't like a bill or anything. Like, they don't actually, they can change things, but they're more suggestions, or it's like a proposal. Like, the whoever makes the motion, usually the opposition, are basically saying to the government, we would like you to do this. Even if a motion passes, it's not signing something into the law, nothing like that. But it is important because it puts things on the records, and it gives, you're kind of giving suggestions basically. So, three things that it has: it describes the problem, says why it matters, and then gives examples of, or like actions that the government can take, or they want the government to take. Okay? So we will use the Soc Dems or motion that they just put forward to describe this. So they put forward one called Expanding Access to General Practitioner Care, right? So this is about GPs and the fact that this country, we are lacking them sorely. Sure, my uncle moved to Kildare with his family years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago. His GP is still the one like 5 seconds from my house, and I live in Dublin. So every time, like, my cousin is sick, and my cousin used to be sick all the time. Every time she was sick, they'd have to drive her to Dublin. I mean, it means I got to see them, but they'd have to drive her down here to go see her GP to get her prescriptions, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, really, really insane. And also in Kildare, one of the Aidan Farley, who's a TD for Kildare, said that there's 3,200 people to per GP. That's crazy. Like, the numbers are crazy, and also it's because Kildare has such a growing population, because it's so close to Dublin that you can work here but live there, and the accommodation is cheaper. Not that cheap, but cheaper than Dublin, obviously. So that's a big issue. But anyway, so this motion is giving ideas for how we can increase the numbers of GPs. So first, they describe the problem. The problem is we don't have enough GPs. They said, and also that the GPs here are so expensive. way more expensive than what's normal in the EU. Like for most countries, first of all, it's free to visit your GP. And then secondly, if it does cost money, it does not cost like we're double the next like expensive country. I don't know who the one before us. I think I can't remember what country it is, but it's 25 € or something, or 30 € for them to visit their GP, and then for us it's like 50 € to 90 € to visit a GP. So we're double the person behind us or the country behind us, which is insane, and just shows like, baby, that's just too much. So that's the problem. Why it matters is because surveys are showing that 30% of people are skipping going to the GP when they're ill because they can't afford it or they don't have a GP to go to. So they came up with solutions. So the next step is propose some actions for policy changes. So the next thing they did was come with a 20-point plan for some ideas. Some of the ideas are free GP care or free access to GP for under 12s immediately. They said do that today. That's what we would like to see today immediately, and then they would phase that like to include everybody over time, because I guess you can't really just do that immediately. And another idea that they had, which is interesting because I just have never thought about this actually, is to have the HSC provide the GP services in underserved communities, so communities that don't really have that many GPs. So that way, because usually for a GP it's like their private practice, so they have to find a place to have it and pay that rent, and then they have to hire people like the other doctors or other nurses, receptionists, all of the like take over that whole planning, and that costs money. Whereas if the HSC was, not that I would even trust the HSC for a lot of things, but in this case you have to do what you have to do to have the HSC open up these practices. So then all you have to do, all the doctors have to do is work there, show up to work. The nurses just have to show up to work. Receptionists, all of that is taking, everything else is taken care of by the HSC. So then that means doctors don't have to worry about that kind of like extra planning of opening up their own practice. They can just go to work. So yeah, that is the motion that the SOC Dems put forward, Social Democrats, I shall say, um, put forward. The government didn't shut it down, but and they didn't oppose the motion, but that doesn't mean they're actually going to do any of these things because they have their own kind of like GP plan, but it's just a review. Like they're just kind of like looking into ways to increase GP services, but the SOC Dems just gave them some ways. So I don't know, maybe they'll take it into consideration. I don't know, but they didn't oppose it. So that's something. I hope that made sense. It made sense to me when I was saying it, but I'm like, I don't know if that made sense. I hope it did. Next thing is a bill. This one is brought forward by People Before Profit and or People for Profit Solidarity. I always forget that it's actually not just People for Profit because Ruth Coppinger, who I've talked about a lot from there, is actually from the Solidarity half of it. Anyway, so Ruth Coppinger put forward the bill, and it's called the Health, in brackets, Regulation of Termination of Pregnancy, bracket, and Amendment Bill. Anyway, this is to get rid of the 3-day waiting time to go and to get an abortion. So you usually what happens is you go to your doctor, your healthcare provider, say you want an abortion, they say come back, think about it for 3 days, and then come back and we'll proceed. It's actually a lot harder than that because one, there's not that many providers of abortion in this country, and actually so many people still have to travel to England. And then I remember there was this documentary that I think was RT did. Apparently there's all these clinics where you go in and you ask for help, and then it turns out they're like religious nut jobs who do not want you to have an abortion, and they get convince you otherwise, and it's like you're already in a vulnerable position and you have somebody telling you that you're killing God's creations or whatever, and it's like so unbelievably evil to do that to somebody who's already going through a difficult time. But yeah, it's the process of getting an abortion in this country is not simple by any means, and I don't know why there's people out there who act like it is. Basically, they want to get rid of the 3-day window, and Ruth Coppinger said it is but the talking about what the 3-day window is. She said it is based on the idea that women are rash, emotional, cannot make decisions for themselves, and have not fully thought things through. And that by putting in place this barrier, they will suddenly decide not to go ahead with the termination. She also said it does not recognize the amount of thought somebody has generally put into a decision before they even pick up a phone to make an appointment. It does not recognize the impact it is having on GP services. This was essentially a political decision at the time, because this was basically put in, the 3 day waiting time was put in basically so the hardcore, like, because Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, people are always kind of like, they're not, they're basically the same, and they actually are basically the same. But on social issues, Fine Gael would be, I say this like really slightly more left than Fianna Fáil. Like, Fianna Fáil is old, old, old school, okay? So to get these people on board with this, they basically said that even though we are, putting this forward, this bill or whatever, or agreeing to this bill, we need to have some provisions in place. So they added the 3 day window as kind of like a safeguard or whatever. And like, it's a silly safeguard anyway, because I just don't know. People have this assumption that women use abortions as birth control, and I just think that's the most silly, ridiculous thought that anybody could have, and it just gives uneducated and that you have no idea what it actually means to have an abortion or go through an abortion. Because in what universe would anybody want to do that for fun? Like, or do that like as a form of birth control? Like, that's just genuinely insane. And yeah, so they're basically saying we need to get rid of it because it's like, it's just demeaning. Like, the idea that women can't think for themselves, or we're just so emotional that we just wake up one day and we're like, I'm gonna get an abortion. Like, how? Why would that be a thought? Like, why do you think women think like that? I mean, we know why, misogyny, obviously, but it's just ridiculous. So that's why she wants to get rid of that. So Jennifer Carroll McNeil did not oppose it at this time, so it's going to go through to the next stages where there'll be debates and amendments and blah 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 blah. Will the government actually let it get to the point where it passes? I have no idea. I would argue that the government, if they don't want to pass this specific bill, then they should just make their own bill, because I feel like sometimes it's like, oh damn, we probably should have done that ourselves, but they're just not going to do that because they're just too old school. But Jennifer Carroll McNeil hasn't said no as of now, so we will see, and it'll go through the motions. Anyway, this actually brings me very nicely into my next topic. Nicely is not a good word for the story that we're going to speak about. Okay, this is where the trigger warnings come in: sexual assault, rape. If you don't want to hear this, obviously just skip ahead to the next story, the next part, whatever. Because obviously this is very heavy. So we're basically going to be talking about the what is happening at UCD, which is my alma mater actually. Um, and I want to say that I'm really, really shocked at how UCD handled this, but honestly, like, some of the shit that they let go on while I was there, it's like they're just not a very serious, like, the leadership there are just not very serious people at all. And but honestly, even for them, this whole story, like, they've gone too far for sure. Like, this is, I actually am kind of shocked, honestly, that they're this insane. So, what happened? A UCD student was raped in 2013 by somebody who actually does her course, but a year below her. So she was raped by the student, and then that person took photos of her, after she was like unconscious. She had bruises all over her body, like she was naked, like took photos. And then those photos started to circulate within her like school group chat, like WhatsApp group chats, within the staff. Like, the staff got sent the pictures on their emails, reported it to the guards, but did not reach out to her for like a week or something. Like, why they took that long to reach out to her, and then didn't even really provide her support. They said that they've provided her support. The support being the UCD SU, and to be fair, they've stood 10 toes behind her this whole time, but they're students. Like, she should be, I'm sure she's in therapy, but they should have provided that. They should have provided support. Someone high up should have been constantly in conversation with her, which is not what has happened. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's been brought up in the doll, and every single time, every single time I hear something about the situation, it just genuinely gets worse. But it's been talked about for a couple weeks, and now what has been spoken about in the doll is the fact that, and this has been brought up by Ruth Coppinger, she spoke about it. What happened was, so she was raped in 2023, and then she got pregnant, so she had to have an abortion. Because she had to have an abortion, she needed to resit her exams because she missed her exams. So she asked her teachers or whoever, can I resit my exams? They said no. And not only did they say no, they said that you're going to have to repeat the year. But as I said, her rapist was in the year below her. So that would put her in the same year, and he did the same course. So that would put her in the same year and course as her rapist. Insane. Okay? So she's obviously like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Like, that makes no sense. So she takes UCD to the High Court, and basically like, and she's in there fighting to say like, I don't want to repeat the year. I want to just reset my exams and go into the next year. So she brings UCD to the High Court, and they say, the High Court says no. Like, they rule in UCD's favor. UCD couldn't just take that win. They couldn't just have left it and said, okay, we won, let's move on. No, 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 no. They turn around and sue her for the costs that they incurred fighting this. Which I'm like, you get millions in donations every year. You get the student fees from international students that are extortionate. You get the fees from us Irish students as well. You actually don't need the money. And also the idea that my student fees paid for this legal battle makes me genuinely sick, like to my stomach, like makes me want to throw up when I think about it. Whew, sorry, it makes me sick. So they took her to court and they sued her back, which is really, really fucking crazy. Anyway, so, and this is only 2 weeks after the image started circulating again, because the image circulated for the first time and then months later started circulating again. So only 2 weeks after that, they started coming after her for damages. Anyway, so Ruth Coppinger basically was saying that, or calling on the government to do something, because she hasn't been able to go back to college since this, or been able to continue her medical degree. She's been blocked from doing so by UCD. So Ruth Coppinger saying, can the government figure this out? So Jack Chambers, who's the Minister for Public Expenditure, has called on UCD to figure this out, to stop with the legal business of the money, first of all, and to get her back in her course, like, and to help her finish her degree, and also to review the practices that they have at the moment, because obviously this is a case of like they were just following kind of protocol, I guess, and that they didn't know how to handle the situation. But it's like, maybe protocol's wrong and maybe you should investigate that and figure out why this has happened. This student has been failed by so many people. Um, Even if they agree to her like demands, because the UCDSU published like a list of 9 things that they want from the UCD leadership. The first one being like a meeting, like speak to the girl, because they released like 2 statements and at no point had they even spoken to her about the statements that they were going to release. Like, how are you going to talk about someone, send it to 30,000 people, and then not speak to the person that you're speaking about? It's so out of touch. But obviously, this is a situation where it's like there's protocol, and they need to decide how this happened, because like so many, like, she slipped through the cracks basically, and all of these people who were involved don't know how to deal with the situation. Like, I don't know how it escalated to this place. I just, she's a very brave woman for carrying on this fight, because it could have been so easy for her to just say, do you know what, like, because it's one thing, like, she's been through so much. It's one thing for her to have been raped. That alone is devastating, truly devastating. But then to be failed by your college, to be kicked out of your course, also for the images to be circulating, like, the images are still circulating to this day of her after she's been raped, and she has to see that. She has to go, well, she had to go into classes not knowing who has seen the images, who has seen the images, everybody in her course knowing who she is. um just honestly so horrible, and the fact that she's still fighting for justice, like, very, very, very brave woman. But aside from if she finally gets the justice she deserves, full investigation into UCD leadership for allowing this to get this far, because I'm now questioning why you're in the position that you're in if you have no critical thinking skills or empathy for others, because anybody who has empathy would not have let this situation get to this point. Absolutely not. There's just no way. So I think there should be a conversation about that. So we will see where this story goes, if there's justice or not. Let us talk about the Ireland versus Israel football match, okay? So Ireland is scheduled to play Israel at a Nations League match. Okay, so there's going to be two matches. One hasn't been decided where it is yet. But the other one, 4th of October, mm-mm. That week alone, that's an absolutely no-go. 4th of October in the Aviva. They said they wanted to find a neutral stadium. What would be a neutral stadium here? I feel like I'm missing something. Everybody keeps saying it should be neutral, it should be neutral, and that Aviva isn't neutral somehow. I don't know. Does that mean like a location that we don't know about, like a hidden one or something? But like the tickets are for sale, so like I don't think that's what they mean. But anyway, they've gone with the Aviva. So obviously everybody wants us to boycott this. I just can't understand how there's people who don't want us to boycott because like Russia is not allowed to play in whatever this is football and like it's banned from football pretty much. So I don't really know about sports. I really couldn't care less about sports, to be fair. I only care about them in a social setting, like a chance to go to the pub with the girls. But yeah, they're banned from football, but Israel isn't. And also, I'm confused because everybody, the government themselves, even like Michal Martin came out and said, I stand by RT boycotting Eurovision because so many people, so many journalists have been killed in the genocide in Gaza. But you want this match to go ahead because the Israeli football team isn't the Israeli government. Well, that could be also said for the people who work on, like, who are working on Eurovision, like the Israeli Eurovision stars or whoever. That could also be said for that. Like that doesn't. It's a terrible argument because you're being a hypocrite. So the FAI, Football Association of Ireland, has said that they have no choice but to have for us to fulfill the fixtures. So we have to play these matches, and the reasons why are we would automatically forfeit 6 points. No tea, no shade. We're not even good at football anyway. What is 6 points going to do when we're talking about playing against a country perpetrating a genocide? Possible relegation, so that's when your team like drops to a lower league, I guess. I've watched Ted Lasso, I know this stuff. And then next, damage their Euro 2028 chances. Again, do we have any? I feel like I'm just shitting on the football team, which is like not fair. Oh, and potential financial and regulatory consequences. I feel like I'm shitting on the Irish football team, which isn't fair because like we actually might make it to the World Cup, which is crazy. I will be there at that. I won't be there at the match, but I will be in a pub watching it, the one in March, okay? So I feel like I'm shitting on them because at the end of the day, it's not their fault. They're just the players, and it's like, it's so mean for the FAI to put this amount of pressure on them because, like, I saw something where it's like, the leader of the FAI, like, I couldn't actually tell you who the hell that is. He could be walking down the street, I wouldn't know a thing. Same with the footballers, to be fair, but if you're a football fan, you know exactly who those footballers are. I know that guy Troy Parrott who scored the hat trick. I know him. I would recognize him walking down the street. Like, so it's so unfair that they're the face of this now. They're the people that everybody's kind of looking at when it's like this is not their decision, it's not their choice. They have no control over this. They are literally just the football stars. Should some of them, or could they still boycott? Maybe. But I'm just confused why this is happening still. Anyway, because like the genocide isn't over, so does it make sense for this match to continue? Uh, Scratch his head, scratch his head, scratch his head. No, it doesn't actually make sense. And the FAI have said that they're going to use this as a chance to provide humanitarian support for the Palestinian people and acknowledge the human catastrophe in Gaza. Also, like these consequences that they're gonna face are just not to me that serious. Like maybe it's the like I don't care about sports and I don't care about football kind of like person in me that I just don't understand how they just don't seem that serious to me. Like you forfeit 6 points or something. Like obviously in the grand scheme of things that probably is a lot, but again, like when you just weigh up the costs and like what we're actually talking about at the end of the day, it's like we're talking about children being murdered, people being murdered. The guards have said that they can control this situation. I don't know why they think they can. They said there's no security issues. Obviously, we'll increase the security or whatever. Keep in mind, we're already going to be strained because the EU presidency is happening. So we're going to be having world leaders here all the time. We're going to like there's going to be the guards already stretched thin as it is. So what do you mean you're somehow going to have enough guards to now protect everybody in this situation? It's just not possible. When I hear people say that we shouldn't mix sports with politics, I just think you have no backbone. Yeah, yeah, because everything is political. Literally every single thing we do is political. When apartheid was happening in South Africa, was South Africa not banned from literally every sporting event known to man? Yes, because that is what happens when you perpetrate an apartheid state. There must be consequences for your action. Something has to happen. That is what happened. Russia is committing the war in Ukraine. What has happened? They've been banned from every sporting event known to man. And nobody bats an eyelid at these things. Everybody just says this is the way things go. So, why is it now in this specific situation we shouldn't be mixing sports with politics? Sports and politics will always, always, always go hand in hand. Everything is political. Art is political. People always say that too. We shouldn't be getting, like, music isn't supposed to be political. Everything is political. I don't know why we have to keep having this conversation. It doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, I just think, Loki, you don't have a backbone if you are somebody who doesn't, if you think we shouldn't boycott it. Because what do you think? What do you mean you're putting your entertainment and your love of football over protesting a genocide? Like, is it genuinely ever that serious? Like, is sport ever that serious? Like, you yourself are not even on the pitch. You just want to watch it. You think that's more important than anything else going on in the world. That doesn't make sense. There have to be consequences for people's actions, even if that means you might not be able to watch your favorite sport for one day. You know? Also, on top of this, when it comes to the Israeli like sports fans, it gets very, very political. And they have these like kind of ultra groups, and I know a lot of countries have ultra groups who are like super, super fans who are super fans of like a sports team. Like I know Ferrari has like an Italian ultra group. I watched it and that Drive to Survive show. It's actually a pretty good show. Um, but they have these ultra groups. Those ultra groups are very, very political, and they really support these football teams, but they also support the IDF. And also I've seen loads of reports coming out now about how far right chants are becoming really, really popular in sporting events, like Israeli sporting events, like Death to Arabs, like Fuck Arabs, like Let the IDF Win, which were chants that were used in, there was like a few years ago, it wasn't a few years, it was like November 2024, Tel Aviv Maccabi, or Maccabi Tel Aviv versus Ajax in Amsterdam. There, it was chaos in the streets because the Israelis had no passports still in bag from the airport, bags still on their back, hadn't even taken a minute to breathe or anything. They go to the streets and they start tearing down Palestinian flags, and they also start shouting and chanting "Death to Arabs, fuck the Arabs, and let the IDF win." The genocide that's happening in Gaza and the kind of like rise of the far right in Israel and their hatred for the Palestinian people has become so ingrained in their sport and in their society that by allowing this to continue, we're allowing them to perpetrate this hatred of Palestinian people in 4K for everybody to see. If RT decides to broadcast, I'm sure they would like obviously get rid of the sound, but we're just allowing this to happen, which I just don't think is appropriate at all if we are as pro Palestinian as we claim to be. So I hope that we, like, this is not a situation where, like, whatever the FAI says is Bible and it's God. Like, this match is still months and months and months out from happening. So I hope that soon enough, or in the next few months, there will be protests and there'll be conversations, and like loads of sports stars are coming out and saying that we should boycott this match anyway. So yeah, I'm hoping that over time more conversations are had, because these sanctions that they claim that the football team are going to get are just not, they're very vague, first of all. So it's like I feel like the FAI have not been having enough of a conversation with whoever runs in the Nations League, the UEFA or whatever. So I hope that more conversations are happening and they're getting serious about it. I don't think they were serious enough about this when they agreed to have the match continue. I don't know if they didn't they underestimated the backlash. I can't imagine that's true. But I think we shall see if that happens. And I hope so, because there's just no way this match can continue. There's just no way. It's There's no way. Let's talk about the SNAs. What is happening? Okay, because 3 weeks ago when I started like doing my research, like we were only at the beginning. So much has happened since then. What happened first of all? And shout out to, I think his name is Eric Roberts. He's like a social media guy. But I think he used to be an SNA, or he used to care for like his nephew. Um, and now he's like a TV star or something. But anyway, he made this video talking about the situation, which is how I kind of like was able to understand what was happening. But what happened was the government came out and sent loads of email, like loads of letters to a bunch of schools saying that come September, you will be losing some SNAs. Like they're the word they use is reprioritizing SNA allocations. So based on numbers or calculations, schools that have too many SNAs will be losing some and going to schools that don't have enough SNAs. So they're just rebalancing it, they said. Except that doesn't actually make sense because they're thinking about this too, like logically. That's not even really the right word, but they're thinking about it too, like numbers and calculations, but that's not what is happening here. There are human beings. These numbers that they're calculating are actual human beings who have come to rely on their SNAs. Like, just because there's some school who has 5 SNAs or 10 SNAs, when if there's even there's no way there's a school out there with 10 SNAs. We're in a crisis where there's not enough SNAs. The concept of a school having too many SNAs, like, it's just not happening. It's just not happening, and the government are delusional if they think that's true. But anyway, they are not taking into account that each of these children who has an SNA right now rely on them. And these SNAs are people that, like, for some of them, they've learned how to. Eric Roberts was saying that they learned how to do sign language so they could speak to their students. They help them, like, not self harm anymore. They've learned specifically how to support these children, okay? And families have like parents have begun to rely on these SNAs to feel comfortable knowing that when my child goes to school, they actually have the opportunity to learn because they have someone there who can support their needs. So all of these families have come to rely on SNAs, and the government has now sent this letter around saying you may be losing your SNA and it will be going to a different school. Okay. Everybody is up in arms about that because can you imagine being a parent and think, and like, didn't say exactly what student is losing it, and like they wanted the principals to decide, which is like so unfair, and principals were like, we're not doing that, first of all. But it's so unfair because how do you even make that decision? You have to decide which child is less deserving of an SNA. How do you even decide that? It's not a decision that you can make because that's not a real thing to be less deserving of an SNA. That's bizarre. Okay? So everybody's up in arms about this. They are losing it because, like, imagine you're a parent, there's parents out there who know that if their child does not have an SNA, there's no way they can go to school. And then if there's nowhere to go to school, who's going to take care of them during the day? And how are they going to get an education? We already have a situation where so many children with special needs don't even have a school place. So now you want to create even more of a crisis, okay? So then it starts going crazy, dude. And the ministers were saying, we're not cutting any SNAs, but that's not even what people were worried about. People weren't worried about cutting the overall number of SNAs. We knew that it was going to be more SNAs because more SNAs are coming out, but you're cutting them from specific students. So in a way, you are cutting them. They said it was rebalancing resources. That's not true. So the government said, we're pausing the review. This is getting out of hand. We are actually pausing it. We'll figure this out, but nobody is losing anybody. And you know what's crazy? Simon Harris goes on to whatever radio show, never met a Mike he didn't love. He went on to a radio show and was like, guys, it's been an extremely stressful week for us. For you? What about the parents who thought their child was going to be losing an SNA? That's crazy. What about the SNAs who have come to learn to support these students, and how extremely distressing it is for them to be thinking, oh my God, I don't know how the student is going to cope without me. Like, maybe not, don't center yourself in this situation because that's kind of insane. But anyway, the government finally agreed to not cut any of the SNAs from any schools that they're at. And this is because all of this was going to be in September. It wasn't like today or tomorrow or whatever. It was going to be from September. Only problem is this means it's like there's a problem. Like, that's only 1 year of guarantee that your kid will have the SNA that they've been having for the past whatever years. We don't know about the year after that, what the plan's going to be. And the government said that they had a meeting, like a special meeting or whatever, on Monday, but like there was protests already scheduled before that. Like, so even though they came out and they said we're going to allocate 19 million euro to funding SNAs, the protests were already scheduled. So there was protests all over the country, and people were like there was principals out there saying like, you can't make me decide what student I'm going to give an SNA to, or what student I'm going to take one from. It's just not in my remit, and it's just unfair to be making those decisions. But also they were saying, just because you've decided for this year, that that's not what you're going to do, we need to have a clear answer of what you're going to do next year, because there's still conversations. The review is closed, I guess, or yeah, this idea of like passing things around is rebalancing the allocations is closed, but they're still going to review what they need to do, which I'm like, you don't need to remove anything, you just need to continue to add more SNAs. Like, that's literally what you have to do. Whatever way you can do that, I don't know, but you can't be taking SNAs away from children. That's just insane. Okay. So, yeah, 19 million being allocated to SNAs next year. But we will see what that means for the year after. Okay, we're getting lighthearted for the last two stories. This is not lighthearted for this guy, but it's lighthearted for me because it's real tea, and this is where I thrive, honey. Okay, let's talk about the Limerick Clash. That's what I've called it. But I need to think of a fun name for whatever the hell's going on here. But yeah, this is crazy. So, John Moran is the mayor of Limerick, and he wrote about his experience of being the mayor of Limerick. And he's the first directly elected mayor, meaning the people of Limerick voted for him, not councillors, which is how it usually is. Like, you elect, how it works is local elections happen, the councillors are chosen, and then they, within the councillors, choose a mayor. They said, no, 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 let's leave that up to the people as well. Okay? So that means in this case, he's an independent. He's not Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, which is what usually happens, because obviously, if you're the majority Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, then you go for one of the other as your mayor. So this has led to a lot of clashes because these Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael councillors do not like that they don't have one of them on top. Okay. Have you guys seen this? If you haven't, you must look it up. There was a sorority email that was sent out like years ago in America. The sorority leader was like, you guys have not been putting in your work. You've like, we go to frat parties and you're supposed to socialize, and I just see you guys on your phone or doing like talking to each other. Like, you're supposed to be networking, you're supposed to be doing this. I'm not doing it justice because like the way she spoke in that email was so fucking batshit and like so batshit crazy. It was mad, and this that's what this whole situation reminds me of, like the blog post, but also it reminds me of the burn book in Mean Girls when she's like, do you know, or that monologue where she's like, do you know what people say about you? They say you're a something something ugly version of me or whatever. Just not what he says, not the content that he's put into it, but the format, the fact that he's done this in a blog post is killing me. Okay, let's get into it. What happened? Can we start off with the fact that it starts off with hashtag democracy denied bar? Okay, I love that. So he starts off this. I'm gonna read some of the blog posts to you guys, okay? Because it's just too interesting. He starts off with saying, democracy requires debate. What happened on Tuesday should concern us all. And he kind of ate with that because it's true. And he said, oh my God, like this really makes me sad a little bit. He said, for me personally, it was one of the lowest points since my election. He said, since my election, a small minority of councillors within the two ruling parties have consistently opposed almost every significant initiative I've brought forward. I emphasize, this is not the majority of councillors. Many across the chamber engage constructively, but a small group have chosen a different path. Low key, get on Substack, your writing style is immaculate. Anyway, he said that there have been so many arguments, and like that these counselors have actually started to get nasty towards him, and that they've been either dismissive or mocking. He also said that he thinks that the reason that they're being so harsh and so mean to him, on top of like them being jealous, I'm sure, because he's the mayor and they are not, um, that he thinks that they're hoping that they can wear him down and that he'll eventually quit. Like, it's bullying. It's giving high school. It's giving like childish. It's giving petty. Oof. So, what happened on Tuesday? What is it that should worry us all? Okay, listen to this. So there was this corporate plan, right? So it's about kind of like what they hope to achieve during the term and how they're going to go about doing that. It's about voting and structure. How are they going to do this? Now they have a mayor that's been directly appointed. How are we going to work going forward? So they had a corporate plan. This corporate plan was drafted and whatever months ahead of time. It was sent to all the councillors. They could read it over. If they had any problems, they could add to it. However, a bunch a group of people, as he has said, a group of people within Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael came together and they added like 20 amendments into this bitch. Like, so, bah, bah, bah. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. So John said, oh, okay, I'll have a read, we'll have a discussion before the vote. And all of this is so last minute. So they have a 7-hour meeting set to discuss these changes. And John and other councillors are kind of like, questioning some of the things that have been put into this plan and like, okay, how did you come up with this? Can you explain this further? Right? So, 7-hour meeting, keep in mind. During the 7-hour meeting, people are going into it's getting catty, it's getting bitchy, it's getting messy. And he said this is normal operating procedure at this point. This is how it usually goes. People break into groups, they go into different rooms and they're busy talking to each other and making plans and kind of like it's kind of like a conspiracy in a way. So he says that keeps happening. Finally, they all go back into the room. We're at hour 5. 7 hours is crazy, first of all, anyway. But they're at hour 5 of this meeting. John gets sick. He starts to feel very, very ill. He says, "Do you know what, guys? I actually have to go home." So, common courtesy would be to cancel the vote, to say we'll vote another day. Mm-mm-mm. This group of counselors who he's mentioned before have like been trying to oppose him at every turn and have like kind of banded together to make his life pretty much miserable. They say, let's just vote. Just vote. Just vote. He says, let's just vote. The opposition are like, or other members are like, no, I just don't think that's fair. Like, that's not right. Like, we should at least let John fully read this or like have a say. Because again, the plan had been circulated months before, but they had now recently added amendments that nobody really had the chance to question them about or to discuss or even read. So that's what this meeting was for. And actually, they should have had more than just this meeting, honestly, for the amount of amendments that had been added. So, yeah, everybody's like, let's just reschedule this. We'll do this another day when John's feeling fine, and we'll come back and vote again. The counselor said, no, I don't actually think so. It's giving that's a you problem, not a me problem. I'm a vote today. So they had this vote, and it passes with all their amendments and whatnot gone through. Guys, John hears this and he wakes up mad as hell. Picture, I've mentioned Mean Girls before. Picture it again. Mean Girls scene. Regina, I can't remember exactly what triggered her, but she's in her room. She grabs that burn book. Bah! Da 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 da. Right, pen's on fire. Pen is on fire. And he posts that blog post. Mm, mm. Yeah, guys, it's getting messy, but can you imagine, like, you wake up and you've been baited out online? To be fair, he didn't name names and he could have, and I wished he did. I'm sure people, like, who live in Limerick, or if you look it up, probably know exactly who these people are, and, like, you can figure it out because they're Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael councillors. But yeah, he was mad and it's unfair. And he's right. This is a threat to democracy because the whole point is that we're supposed to be having debate and conversation. And like, it's just giving petty. Like, it actually is petty. Like, oh my God, you don't get to be mayor. Like, grow the hell up, move on. It's like, oh my God, I'm not the head cheerleader. This is not fair. Please. Like, no, move on, move on, move on. Just accept defeat and just move on. I don't know how they're going to move on from this. Connor Sheehan, who is a Labour TD, but his constituency is in Limerick, he was calling on the government to introduce a mediator, an independent mediator, to solve this issue because obviously it's just going to keep getting messier and messier and messier if it's not shut down. Because if it's true, I mean, I'm sure it is. If it's true that these people have been going out of their way to make this guy's life miserable because he was directly elected mayor and they didn't get the chance to put ever whoever they wanted on top. If it's true that this is how it's been going, these people are really not well. And probably shouldn't be in power because you have no control of your emotions and you're petty and lack control. But yeah, they're just prideful it seems, and they just can't accept defeats. I don't know. Okay, final story, and this one is funny as fuck, dude. I love this one. I've been watching videos about this like all week because I just think it's the funniest thing. Let's talk about Thomas Gold, who is a Cork TD for Sinn Féin, and the fact that he's going global. He's gone global. He's a star. He's a superstar because of his accent. People love the Cork accent, and you know why they love it? Because apparently it's giving Jamaican. Okay, listen to the speech. Well, I won't play the whole speech, but I'll listen. Lol, somebody says Bumba Cork. That's funny as fuck. Like I've been cackling at some of these tweets and stuff. Okay, listen to his voice.
Stand up and take your responsibility for their job. He brought out a new shiny booklet. It looks great. 140 pages. 140 pages, right? 110 of them are telling us the problems why we have a crisis and emergency in housing. You must be trying to destroy the rainforest in the Amazon. 140 pages for what? Or do you think that we're all fools over here? Because I tell you this, we're not fools. We know what's happening. Year in government, Fine Gael 15 years, Fine Fall 11 years. All these problems were caused by this one of the, just gonna
140 pages. Okay, first of all, he spent straight facts. What no one is talking about is the fact that he ate that speech up. Yes, what do you mean 140 pages of nonsense? 110 of those are you saying that we have a housing crisis that you caused, like no shit Sherlock, fork, fan, and kitchen? Um, but funny as hell. Let's read some of the tweets, guys, because I've been. Somebody said, where was my favorite one? Somebody said Bumba O'Claherty. Bumba Cork, Irie or Irish. I need to stop doing the accent, Loki. Nah, I don't give a shit. Someone said welcome to Shamrock. Bumba Cork is my favorite, but there's another one. Bumba O'Claherty. Bumba Clarity. That is a good one. But yeah, everybody was like he wanted to say thing so bad, and like he could have because that's actually kind of Irish in a way. But I love that he's going viral everywhere. He had an interview with the Jamaican Observer. Like that is so funny and so random. And he was saying that somebody who is from Cork reached out to him and said like I live in Jamaica, and he said like at work it's been the funniest few days ever because of this like connection, and there's obviously historical connections to that in like the Irish influence on the Jamaican accent, but yeah, that's pretty cool, huh? I love that. I love when globalization does its thing. I'm a massive fan of globalization, and the fact that we have access to technology that lets us have these conversations and have this like laugh together. It's just a beautiful thing. But yeah, you guys should look this up, and you should look at the comments because they're fucking funny as fuck. Another funny one, Bumba Crack. Oh my god, that's good. Bumba Clover. Communication. That one's good. And also, my accent's pretty good, huh? Good. 140 pages. Is that Cork or Jamaican? I don't know. But anyway, I love. And he said he's a bit of a Bob Marley guy himself because somebody, another rate. He's been doing a tour, to be fair, of all the radio stations here and Jamaica. And I'm sure he should go to Jamaica, low key. That's pretty funny. But he said it's the interviewer's like people are comparing you to Shaggy, and he goes, I'm a bit of a Bob Marley man myself. Like that's good. That's a bar. But yeah, honestly, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope it wasn't too long or too overwhelming. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I know I did actually, but it's just been a while. I actually missed this. Like, whoa, who would have thought I actually really love doing this podcast? It's kind of fun, huh? But yeah, I need to like have a forum or something where I can like ask your guys' opinion on this. Like, what should I change? What should I add? What should I do? Whatever. Let's not overthink it. Okay. Bye, guys. I hope you guys have a beautiful week, and I will see you all next week. And next week is 10 episodes. So I've read somewhere that most episodes fail after 10 episodes. So if we get to 11, we've already won. Bye.